Wonderful. All right, so to get started, we'll go over our introductions. We'll also talk about Berkeley Public Health's mission, vision, and values. We will spend some time on program design. So we'll talk about the structure of the program, the timeline, a sample curriculum specifically for our EpiBio concentration. We will go over some of the logistics of the program, like fees, scholarships that are available. We'll talk about the admissions process. We are accepting applications right now, so we'll make sure to spend some time on that. We will talk about postgraduate careers and salaries. So what are our student outcomes, and specifically the outcomes of our EpiBio students. We will talk about, and then we'll have time for Q&A as well. So, don't hesitate to send questions into the chat as we're presenting, but know that we will make time at the end to answer those questions and take additional questions as well. All right, so as I mentioned, my name's Elise Rudolph. I'm the Director of Online Admissions Recruitment, and I'm joined by my wonderful colleague, Stephanie Nguyen, who's our Online Education Recruitment Manager. Many of you may have already had an opportunity to meet with her, but she is an excellent resource, especially if you're considering applying. So we are your admissions team. Our goal is to answer your questions about the program, the application process, and just generally be a resource to you. We really want to meet with you. We are available for one-on-one advising, for a phone call. And so if there are any part of the program or admissions process that you have questions on, our goal is to demystify that and make everything as transparent as possible for you. All right, and our guest of honor, we are so delighted to be joined by Dr. Sandra McCoy, who is the faculty lead for our epidemiology and biostatistics concentration. Sandra's research interests include impact evaluation and implementation of science, prevention and control of HIV and other sexually transmitted infections, including PrEP, HIV self-testing, and adherence, demand creation for voluntary family planning and other sexually reproductive health services, especially among adolescent girls and young women, human-centered design, and digital health interventions. Sandy also teaches a couple courses with us. So she teaches epidemiological methods, which is in the online program, as well as the epidemiological methods in the residential program. So we're super delighted to have you on today. Sandy, is there anything that you would like to share or more about your research you want to share with the group?
I would just say thank you so much, Elise and Stephanie, for inviting me to be here today, and welcome to all of our participants. Thank you for your interest in Berkeley Public Health. We are all very dedicated lovers of Berkeley and so happy to be part of the Berkeley family, and we would be happy to talk to you about that experience as well in the next hour.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Yes, and such a good point. We really are so, I think all of us are real believers in Berkeley Public Health, and I think that's an excellent segue into Berkeley Public Health's mission. So our mission is healthy people locally and globally. So we want to extend Berkeley's reach to improve population health, especially for the most vulnerable, and providing the tools to address the pressing public health challenges of our time. So the way that we do that is through innovative and transformative online learning with a rigorous and interactive curriculum. Sandy will actually talk a little bit more later on in this session about what that curriculum looks like, the coursework that you might take, some of the skills that you might take away from the program. It's a flexible education experience that aligns with the needs of working professionals. So you will hear us repeat this again and again, but this is a program that is asynchronous. It is 90% online, and that is intentional because we want to provide access to a top-notch Berkeley education for folks who have full-time jobs, have families, maybe aren't able to uproot their lives, relocate to the Bay Area. So this program is intentionally designed to be flexible for working professionals who have other responsibilities in their life and want to still upskill their careers. And then we also do this through empowering public health change makers to improve health where they live and in real time. So once again, I think, that Berkeley Public Health Online, the creation of the online MPH was something very strategically designed because we want to empower and upskill folks in their own communities, the community that you're already a part of, the community that you're already impacting. We want to provide you this educational experience where you are so that you can continue to make even greater impact at scale in the community you're already a part of. And our values in the program are service in community, showing up with authenticity, growth rooted in justice and equity, cultivating connection through learning, and centering wellness. All right, I'll hand things over to Stephanie.
Thank you. So I'm going to walk you through the program design. As Elise mentioned, we really focus on flexibility and bringing the program to you. So in doing so, we want to make sure that you still get that high quality education without making any changes in your life, having to come here. And the program is quite similar to our residential program. So the units that you'll need to complete our program for graduation is a minimum of 42. The time of completion traditionally is 27 months. That's 7 semesters. Average units taken per semester for our online program is 6. So that's typically 2 classes. The format of our program is 90% online, mostly asynchronous, and 10% in person, with 2 separate campus visits required during your summer terms. So typically for, I'm sure most of the participants on this call are aiming for fall of 2024. So you'll want to expect your summer visits to land in June of 2025 and June of 2026. So they're split. As I mentioned earlier, the course delivery is mostly asynchronous, so students can work at the time of day that's most convenient to you, and you're not required to be online at a specific time. There are exceptions where we may have guest lectures and moments where there's community engagements through the class where we encourage you to attend. But for the most part, this is a flexible program with deadlines, but you'll be able to work at a pace within that range that works best for you. In addition to that, I'd also say that there's advising hours and a lot of resources in real time for you. So sometimes there might be group advising, sometimes there's one-on-one advising to ensure that you are meeting with your resources to make sure that you are on track for success. In addition to that, the flexible curriculum focuses on different study areas to meet your needs. So we have concentrations around, as you know, epidemiology and biostatistics, but in addition to that, you might have electives outside of the space here. So think of health policy and management, the interdisciplinary area. We also have public health nutrition. So there's a lot of exciting courses that you can choose from, a cluster of courses to really make this your own. And we have a weekly commitment, typically about 15 to 17 hours per week on your course assignments to complete. And the type of degree that you would receive is a professional MPH. So the degree itself does not state that it's online or on campus. It is a traditional certificate degree or a traditional degree. And the program itself on the transcript will utilize our formal name. So we are the online on-campus Master of Public Health program, which you'll see once in the transcript. And moving forward to walk you through the program timeline, as I mentioned, the traditional pathway for our online students will be to complete the program in 7 semesters. With that, though, there are opportunities for you to accelerate the program in 24 months, so you can complete it in 6 semesters. Or if you need to pace it, life happens and maybe you might have a job promotion and move out of state and you need a semester to just take some time off, we can work with you for that. But traditionally, I would say we focus on the 7 semester program. But with that, Sandy, is there anything else you'd like to add about the program design or timeline?
Yeah, the one thing I'll point out here on the slide that folks might be able to see even in that upper left-hand first fall semester is that most students will take 2 courses per term. So a fall semester term, which is 15 weeks, most students will take 2 3-unit courses during that time that are both spanning the 15 weeks. So you have those 2 courses that you're moving along in parallel. But you can also see sometimes in some semesters, we have the semesters broken into halves. So there's a fall 1 and a fall 2. You can see that kind of in the middle of your slide. And in those cases, the courses are shorter courses. They're 7-week courses, and you take 2 of them concurrently. This has all been very thoughtfully designed. I think one thing that I love about Berkeley Public Health, our online program, is that we're really using best practices for online learning. You are not just seeing a recording of what's happening in my residential course. You are getting a completely different thing that is designed for adult learners who are learning in an asynchronous environment, who are also learning while juggling family and work life. So what that means is, and because I'm one of the professors that teach the same course in our residential program, is that my residential student class might get, a 50-minute lecture of me talking on and on about epidemiologic study design. But in our online program designed for working professionals, is that might be divided into 4 modules that have associated activities to make sure that it's all kind of in very manageable chunks for you that you can fit into your daily life. So I think that's an important asset of our program in terms of this very intentional design. And in addition to that, the courses that go together have also been thoughtfully designed. So for example, in a fall semester where I teach the Introduction to Epi Methods course, you're often taking that course alongside the Introduction to Health and Social Behavior breadth course. And my colleague who teaches that course, we're often in touch with each other about what's happening in your class and how can we pick up that thread in our class using a quantitative lens? How do you pick it up using a social justice equity lens? And so there's a lot of sort of coordination between the 2 courses. Another example is that many students will take our in their final semester an epidemiological analysis course, and we have intentionally paired that with an option to take a course on data visualization using R. And so the idea is that you can actually have that class, you're using the data visualization class to enhance your other class. So I won't say more about that unless folks have questions, but just to know that each semester it's been really carefully designed to make sure that the courses are paired well, and that we think it's an appropriate workload for someone who's also managing other aspects of your life, as we all are.
And leading into that, here we have the sample curriculum. If you'd like to speak a little bit more about the difference between a first and second year and just some of your classes.
Yeah, absolutely. So many of you may know, but if you don't, it's okay. When you get a Master of Public Health degree, a Master of Public Health degree is a professional degree, and it means that you have demonstrated competency not only in a specific subject area like epidemiology and biostatistics, but that you've demonstrated competency across the breadths of public health. And so in the first year of our program, most students are taking the 6 core breadth courses. So this is one course in each of these core public health topics. So you can see that in your first fall, you would take health and social behavior, you would take Epi Methods 1. In the spring, you would take environmental health sciences, and then you would take introduction to biostatistics and probability and biostatistics. And these are really the core courses that everyone in the Master of Public Health program would take. This is the same across most schools of public health that are accredited. You take these core courses. It's really in your fall or in your second year where you start to specialize in your concentration. So in epidemiology and biostatistics, our students will then take another series of epidemiologic methods courses. So you can see in fall of year 2, the students take Public Health W250B Epi Methods 2. That's essentially the more advanced methods course. They also fulfill a competency in data management. Students at Berkeley can choose between learning R software, which is our preferred software tool, or you can also learn SAS. It's up to you, but you have to fill a competency in data management because that's obviously core to what epidemiologists and biostatisticians do. Students will also take a second biostatistics course where you'll learn regression and other tools for epidemiologic analysis. And then you have a variety of different essentially EpiBiostat concentration courses to choose from. So you can really tailor the program according to your needs. So on the example here, we have implementation science because many students want to learn about implementation science, but that's an option. You could also take a course on intervention trials. You could take a course on data visualization. And we sort of have this menu of courses that meet the additional courses option for you to fulfill. And then in the summers, you'll take your interdisciplinary seminar, which I think we'll talk a little bit more about, and other electives. So essentially, you have your core MPH breadth courses. That's sort of that top row. Then you have your core EpiBiostat courses, which is like your Epi2, Biostat 2 courses. And then you have more flexible courses that are concentration courses that are aligned with your interest area. And I'll just drop in the chat the program page for the EpiBiostat concentration if you want to take a little bit deeper dive. It also lists what the competencies are and all of the specific classes that you would have to choose from. Thanks, Stephanie.
Oh yeah, I'll have more questions for you. So I'll go over the practicum briefly here though. So with the program, it is required for you to complete the public health practicum. And a practicum is a space for you to build applied work, research, whatever you're interested in. This is a space for you to build off of the toolkit and skill sets that you're learning in the program, maybe even outside of work, and combine it into a space that is structured. It's a pathway for you to utilize, maybe you're learning course skills from epidemiologic methods and you want to apply it into a practicum. That's a great space to, again, have a structured area to do so. This is a minimum of 130 hours that you need to complete. It's a self-directed type of practicum, and that's our operating model for that. And you can complete the program or you can start the program as early as your second semester, but you want to complete it by the 6th semester of the program. So there's a span for you to work towards this, completing this practicum. And with that said, we have students completing it in many different areas, whether it be health systems, research, government, private sector, nonprofit. This is a space that is very open. And we actually work with the RISE team. So the RISE is the professional and career and leadership development group that we have here, full of wonderful resources. You would primarily work with Candace Rogers and Sarah Ayazi and team to find something that is not only impactful for you, but something that is going to be relevant towards your career and your training and however you see yourself developing this. But one of the questions I have for you, Sandy, is what types of practicums do you see within the EpiBio space? Is there something that has stood out to you before or anything that you'd like to elaborate on?
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity to say a little bit more about that. So I wanted to underscore something you said, which is that it's incredibly flexible and we see all kinds of practicums because they're sort of developed organically from the student and students' resources. And so we see a variety of different practicums, but I can give you all a flavor of what they might look like in among folks who are in the epidemiology and biostatistics concentration. So many folks that are in our concentrations are often working in applied public health. So they may be already placed at a state or local health department. And in those cases, sometimes those students could use their existing resources to, for example, help collect data for an outbreak investigation or help with an outbreak investigation in terms of instrument design or data analysis. Other times, students may want to participate or in the design or implementation of a national or state surveillance system that could include development of data collection instruments, data cleaning, developing training materials, or even outreach to participating sites. There can also be participation in designing survey instruments to, for example, monitor the disease burden at a specific hospital, school, or community. There's also a group of students who want to actually have hands-on experiences with data as part of their practicum, and we're obviously very supportive of that when it's possible. Sometimes students are already in an organization where they have access to data, but until they have joined our program, they didn't yet have the skills to meaningfully dive into those data. And so we encourage folks to, if you have the opportunity, to examine data from where you work, whether that be at a community organization or a hospital, maybe to look at the prevalence or incidence of a health condition, or how it's correlated with a harmful or protective exposure. In addition, there's a ton of publicly available data. We have a compendium that we share with students of huge national or global health resources of data that are available to anyone. And you can come up with your own research question to apply what you're learning in class to those data sets. And we're very excited when we see students doing that. In addition, we obviously have relationships with local and state public health. And so often students are leveraging those relationships to, for example, have access to data collected by California Department of Public Health or other health departments to analyze for their practicum. So it can really run the gamut. In EpiBiostat, we obviously have a slight bent towards data, but there's obviously really important aspects of epidemiology like outbreak investigation and surveillance that our students are also engaged in as well. So it's really an individualized decision and process, and something that you'll kind of co-create with your network and your advisor.
All right. So we'll dive into the application checklist, and I'll try to run through this fairly quickly so that, and then I'd love to invite Sandy to share more about her perspective on the application process as someone who reviews applications for our epidemiology and biostatistics concentration. But generally speaking, there's a few prerequisites we want to emphasize. You should have statistics or college level math with a B+ or higher. We would like you to have familiarity and aptitude in biological or social sciences. And we are looking for a minimum GPA of 3.0. Now, specifically, the items that we'd like you to submit with your application are the advanced GPA calculation. So your advanced GPA is all of the coursework that you took after your first 2 years of undergraduate. So this is something we do. It's meant to be advantageous to you. Most folks tend to perform a little bit better once you've adjusted to, your undergrad, learning how to study, balance that kind of life change that occurs when you start your undergraduate. So we are looking at everything after your first 2 years. And there is a GPA calculation worksheet that is linked to this slide, which we will send out. We are looking for 2 essays, your statement of purpose and your personal history statement. We would like to see 3 letters of recommendation from either academic or professional sources. Now, it's common for our applicants to have been out of school for several years. So if you aren't still in contact with your professors, that's completely understandable, and you are welcome to submit only professional references if that's the case for you. We would like to see all of your transcripts. So transcripts from all coursework that you've taken. If you took classes at community college first, if you did some graduate coursework, we would like to see transcripts from all of your educational experiences. We'd like to see a resume or CV. There is an application fee. It's $135 for US or permanent residents and $155 for international applicants. If you are an international applicant, we may require English proficiency exam, and then we do not require the GRE. So if you haven't sat for the GRE, you do not need to. If you have sat for the GRE, you are welcome to send us those scores, and you'll see the school code is listed on this slide. So with that, Sandy, I would love to hear from you, what you think makes a strong applicant to our program.
Yeah, thank you so much. This was a great overview of our application. And it's true, I do read a lot of applications. And I think the one overarching thing I would say before we dive into any of the details is that you may feel intimidated by this process or feel a little bit of imposter syndrome, especially if you've been away from school for a long time. But I would really encourage you to let you and all of your unique strengths shine through in your application and tell us about yourself and why you think Berkeley Public Health is the fit for you, even if you've had a non-traditional trajectory to public health. In fact, people with non-traditional trajectories to public health, we need you. We need bright, fresh ideas in public health. I think we've learned that through the COVID pandemic, that new ideas are welcome, because some of our old ideas in public health don't always work as we expect. So even if you're making a career change or you're not quite sure if you have the right experience, I would say to go ahead and complete your application and tell us about yourself. The statements are the two places where you really get to express who you are and what your goals and aspirations are. And I love reading those. Those are my favorite part of looking at the application. One other thing I would say is that some people may be worried, maybe they had a bad semester or two as an undergrad where something happened, in their personal lives, for example, or they had a hard time getting started as an undergrad and had maybe not so great grades, or they have you have gaps in your professional experience. And that's okay. I think as long as you talk about that in your statements and just be really honest about what happened. And many people do that. And, even if you had a bad couple of years as a student, but you explain what happened and how you've overcome those challenges, we still could see you as a great fit for Berkeley Public Health. So I think the overarching message I would say is one of encouragement. And if you think that there's something that's less than stellar in your application, the best thing to do is actually shine a light on it and talk about it rather than trying to pretend it's not there, because we love to hear about you and all of the unique things that have happened to you that make you you and might make you a great fit for our community. I'm also happy to talk about specific application issues if that's helpful, but those are kind of my overarching thoughts, Stephanie and Elise.
That's wonderful. Yeah, and this is a great segue because we are actually accepting applications right now. So if you are interested in applying to either our fall 24 or our spring 25 cohorts, you are able to apply now. And if you are interested in applying for fall 24, we have an upcoming deadline. Our final deadline to apply is March 3rd. So just around the corner, but still enough time if you are thinking about it and you're kind of on the edge, you're not sure. I always encourage folks to go ahead and submit an application because the worst thing that we can say is, maybe not yet. Like, you might need take an extra stats class, or there might be some recommendation we give, but it can't hurt to submit an application and see what feedback we provide. So you are able to apply for fall 24 that until March 3rd. That cohort will begin in August. And if you're not quite ready, you're welcome to start planning to apply for our spring 25 cohort. And we will be accepting applications for our spring cohort until August 8th. And that cohort will begin coursework in January. All right, and I'll hand things over to Stephanie to talk a little bit more about our student outcomes.
Yeah, so thank you so much, Elise. And with this said, a lot of times in my calls I get questions around, what's the makeup look like after graduation? Where do you go? So I just wanted to do a quick recap of the average salary that most of our online MPH graduates, this is self-reported. So this is our average salary of students coming out of the program with an MPH. So you can see here we have students with different job titles around data analyst, senior financial analyst. There's so many ways to pivot with an MPH, and I think that's the exciting part about this. We have students that work at the Department of Public Health here in San Francisco, all the way to larger spaces in the CDC. When I've checked in with some of our graduates, we have students at so many different areas, but I'd love to lean in on you, Sandy, and I know that you just shared with us yesterday some great news with some of our students as well. So if you'd like to talk a little bit more about where do our students go and what does that network look like? I'd love to hear a little bit more about that too.
Yeah, I think, I think people with an MPH from Berkeley go into a very heterogeneous space. I think really the world is your oyster once you have an MPH, I think, because there's so many different ways to either go into policy, to go into finance, to go into data science, or into direct healthcare provision. So lots of different options. So folks who usually come into epidemiology and biostatistics are folks who like data or who are very into applied public health response. So an example of that you're referencing, Stephanie, is yesterday one of our upcoming graduates reached out to me and said, Dr. McCoy, I just wanted to share with you that I was just accepted into the California Epidemic Intelligence Service fellowship program. And I'll just drop that in the chat, which is a prestigious fellowship program for folks who are trained on epidemic responses in California. And so she was really excited, obviously. And that's an example of one of our students who really wants to work in applied public health. Her path is to work in local, state, federal public health departments, including CDC. And we have many students who are on that path. But I would also say that folks who are in EpiBiostat, we're really using the same tools that data scientists are using, right? We're using our software to analyze big data and do all of the sort of similar techniques that you would learn in data science, but applying it to problems in health. And so many of our biostat focused students in particular may end up at a pharmaceutical company. They may work at some place like Kaiser Permanente, where there's enormous data sets that they get to dive into and play with and answer high priority research questions. So that's kind of where that track of students may end up. But I think just as important, and some of my own research incorporates this as well, are the folks who want to work on policy. And, for example, my team is very interested in expanding HIV prevention at California pharmacies. And so we've been working really closely with folks who are in the state legislature on changing policy, using evidence and data to give to them so that they have information to argue on the Senate floor. So I think there's a whole spectrum of places where MPH students end up. But what the MPH does give you is a sort of toolbox that you can take with you to work on a variety of high priority health issues.
Love that. And with that said, we're getting close to the end where we can start our Q&A, but just wanted to plug in that our next information session will actually be a workshop. So we'll be invited by our online MPH candidate, Hope Delgado, who will walk through her essays and give some tips and tricks and best practices on what she felt really shine through her uniqueness and her passion to public health. So love for you to join that if you are able to. It's tomorrow at 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And you can always check. I'll be sending out these slides. So if you are interested in joining more upcoming sessions, we'll definitely have them posted in the next week or two. And with that said, follow us, stay connected with us through our socials. We love to hear from you. I love to, make sure that you have a network here, starting from our admissions team. And if you have any questions at all, please reach out at online.mph@berkeley.edu. But with that said, this concludes the presentation in itself. So thank you so much for being here. And if you have any questions, this is the time. Please drop them in the chat, or you can feel free to unmute or raise your hand, whatever you feel most comfortable. But this is the time to ask Sandy all the questions. And I have a fun fact. She's actually a graduate of Berkeley. So if you need to hear about her experiences, this is the time.
It's true. We're big Berkeley fans in my household. It goes way back.
Oh, Jacqueline, I see you have a raised hand. Please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you so much, Elise, Stephanie, and Sandy. This was a great overview. I'm curious how the online program supports networking, given that it's asynchronous, so connecting with our peers and faculty members. Is that challenging in an online environment? And are there ways that the program supports connection?
Do you want me to take that?
Sure, yeah, that would be great.
Well, maybe we can all chime in.
Yeah.
I think we should. I think it's such an important question, because I think having a network is so important, not only to get through the program, like when you need support on your R code, who are you going to reach out to? You want buddies, but your professional network is also who you will tap into for jobs and resources. You know, people that I got my MPH with, I actually have grants with them right now because we just loved each other so much. We continue to collaborate. So I wish that for all of you. We do have very intentional activities that we build in. Now, of course, it's not going to be the same as running into someone in the hallway, because you're only going to do that during your summer visits, which is actually the most magical time, I think, of our whole program, is when you get to meet your study buddies in person and you see all of these big moments where people get to connect in person. But we have very intentional opportunities to get to know each other. We have concentration specific sessions like this, where we might have breakout rooms and you get to know each other and network. But also through your classes, I think that's honestly just the best way, because what often happens is that, for example, in your first semester, you are in groups for both the community health sciences class and in the epi class. And so you have kind of a built-in group of people just to start with. And I've observed students like immediately start like a WhatsApp chat, and they start, hanging out on weekends and studying over Zoom. Sometimes they just have a Zoom on and they're just doing independent work. So I think we do that. And then we also are very open to what students suggest. If there's demand from students to organize a specific kind of activity, we will do that. So it really depends on what we hear students want, and then also making sure that we hold space for the creation of community. Stephanie and Elise, do you have other things to add?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I think the way that the course structure is built really has intentionality behind it. A lot of times when I'm checking in with students, there's one, she's a dear friend now, but as a student, she's like, we call ourselves the Three Musketeers because we started off in this class, and there was a slight pivot once they got into their elective courses. But for the most part, it was really exciting for them to kind of move forward through the program together and be able to study with each other. And one of the things that I think gets overlooked within the online program is that you're a Berkeley student first. So all the resources that are that you're paying for, is there for you to be a part of. And in addition to that too, there's you can, as a Berkeley student, you can take 2 classes that are public health specific in person, assuming that there's seating available. So there's going to be times where you might even find a residential student in our online program. So there's some integration there. So your network is expanded in that sense. But just focusing on the online space, there's also sometimes students that live local to each other that figure this out, through a class. And for the students that aren't, as Sandy mentioned, typically use WhatsApp or other methods to connect. And I think there's the spirit between the summer visits that just students come into the online program not necessarily just because of flexibility. They still come to graduate school because they want the camaraderie, they want that experience. And I feel like it takes effort to do so. You have to also want to build community in that, but so do other students. And we always see it when the summer visits happen. It just elevates this whole program. So intentionally, the 90% online is to build that flexibility, but that 10% is to build community and then keep it going. So it takes time, but I think once you find that, students naturally, will work with each other for research. I've seen students work on practicums together as well. So, and network behind the scenes as well on their side projects. I can go on and on with that. Elise, is there anything you'd like to add to this?
No, I think you both covered it. I think our students are really successful. I mean, at the summer visits, I've heard a lot of folks will like stay together, they'll rent a house together, or they'll stay with their classmates. So it's really, I think folks just are very comfortable with each other by the time those summer visits roll around, and then you really can kick off your networking there as well. So
yeah, Sandy, since you have a better view of the concurrent classes, is there anything you'd like to say about the different styles and structures of the first 2 courses or semesters?
Well, I think what I could say is, sometimes people aren't exactly familiar with what it means to have an asynchronous course, because, so maybe let me just say a little bit more about what that looks like. So it's not like maybe you sign up for a course online and maybe through like one of those large like open source courses where it's kind of like you work through the course at your own pace. That's actually not what happens at Berkeley Public Health. So even though the course is asynchronous, that means that most of the time, probably 90% of the time or more, you are working through modules on your own time. So maybe you work late at night, maybe you're early bird, you get up and listen to the lectures and do activities then. That means it's on your own time. However, there are weekly deadlines. So the whole course is moving together through the material. So it's not like you work through a course on your own, completely on your own pace. We see, for example, a particular cadence where many students work on Sundays. So we in my class even offer office hours on Sundays because we know that that's often the day people do a lot of their assignments. And in OOMPH, most instructors try to coordinate where any deadlines or assignments that you submit are on Monday night to make sure that you have the weekend, because that's when often we call our students the weekend warriors because they're working during the week and doing their MPH on the weekends. So we really try to accommodate that. In terms of the weekly workload, what was presented in the slides today is, of course, an average. We do have midterm exams and all of those things that you would expect in a rigorous program like ours. And those might be weeks where there's a little bit more effort. And then obviously like the first few weeks of the semester or weeks after an exam are lower key weeks. So there is a bit of an ebb and flow. But we do have now many years of experience. We've just had our 10-year anniversary. So we now have a lot of years of experience of really understanding whether we have the right course combination that a working professional can manage. And I think we really do have it down now so that for the most part, these are manageable courses that are paired together that you can take in addition to your other commitments.
So just to check my understanding, for fall 2024, if I'm taking the two core breadth courses, the environmental health and the biostats, it would be typically around 16 hours altogether spread between those two classes, not 16 hours of environmental health and 16 hours of biostats.
On average, yes. However, I would just clarify.
Yeah, with peaks and valleys.
Yeah, peaks and valleys. And actually, just to clarify, in the fall, you would take the EPI breadth course and the community health sciences breadth course, actually, or the health and social behavior.
Oh, I was reading on the wrong line of my notes. That's my bad.
Yeah,
Yes. Yeah. You got the idea of what I was trying to say.
Totally.
Thank you. Yep. All good.
Thank you for your questions. And we have another one in the chat. How do you suggest we get started on branching into epidemiology and more public health related jobs, volunteer, especially if I only have taken a few public health courses in my undergraduate years? I find it difficult to get a foot in the door. Yeah, I think this is a really interesting question. And Sandy, I wonder if you might have some insight into this.
Yeah, I mean, this is such a great question. I would say that epidemiology and biostatistics is a big lens. There's a lot of things that fall under that umbrella. I would say that any activities where you're involved in either the collection and cleaning or analysis and interpretation of data is a great foray into the world of epidemiology and biostatistics. So even if at your own organization or a community organization that you work with, there's an opportunity to think a little bit more about data collection or analysis of data, that's a fabulous way to start to get involved. But in addition, there are also all of the activities before you collect data that are important in terms of study design or designing instruments for data collection. And those are great ways as well. I think in terms of, getting your foot in the door, obviously you would build a lot of connections through our program and through your peers who have a lot of resources. But I think many people are surprised that even at the organizations they're at now, there are often needs for things like data analysis or interpretation of results that are very much aligned with some of the competencies in epidemiology and biostatistics.
Thank you. And there's a question also about our admission rate. So I wanted to share that while our admission rate varies each semester, we usually aim to have a cohort of around 60 individuals each term, give or take a few. And I also like to share that we want to, it is our goal and our hope to accept any student who we feel is set up for success in the program, who will be successful in the program. That is our goal. What I always encourage is, we want you to apply. Stephanie and I are here to help you put your best foot forward. And we aren't so much it's not like we'll accept 5 and even, we won't accept anyone else. We really want to work with you to put your best foot forward. And if we feel that you can be successful in the program, we want to give you that opportunity. So yeah, hopefully that provides some insight into the question. But if you have like more specific questions about if you're eligible or how to have a strong application, definitely reach out to Stephanie and myself. All right. Am I missing, Stephanie or Cindy, am I missing any questions in the chat?
I think they've been covered, but feel free to ask away, y'all, if you have any questions.
I just wanted to say, just as folks are adding their next round of questions, that in terms of software, you will be guided through the process as part of being a student at Berkeley Public Health. So in the intro to biostatistics course that you'll take in your first year, most of the time we're using RStudio online, so you do not have to download anything to your specific laptop. And that learning process is a guided process through the course of the class. So you're not on your own trying to figure out how to use R.
Nicole, I see that you have a question as well.
Yes, sorry. Oh, excuse me. Sandy did just pretty much answer a lot of it. So thank you. But I guess outside of maybe that data management software, what other programs we need, like Office, Word, things like that. Again, I'm not sure if anyone else is going to be looking for a new laptop once they go back to school, but just want to make sure I'm as set up as possible with the plethora of options that are out there these days.
Yeah, there are a lot of options, and I can just say that I think having a functional computer is important, because obviously the course is online, the program is online. So what you will see for most of your classes is we use an interface called B Courses, and it's actually like an online application that you log into, and everything you need for your course is in there. So that's something that you access through an internet browser. So almost any laptop would be able to do that for you. And then all of your lectures, videos are posted there. Problem sets that you need to work are posted there. There's even a chat function where you will interact with other people in your class. So that is all through a web browser. So that is an essential piece. And then there may be other assignments that you need to use something like Microsoft Word or a word processing software. So I would say that would be essential to get started. And the other piece is a functional camera. So whether that's part of your laptop or something that you buy as an accessory, that's also important, not necessarily required, but we love to see your faces, and to really create an engaged classroom, I love to have people turn their video on if they're comfortable doing so. So that would be one piece, that a camera and microphone that are functional, that would be components of being successful in our classes.
Yeah, these are great questions, and we have a few more minutes. We have about 3 more minutes, so please feel free to raise your hand, unmute yourself, or send it in the chat.
One more quick question. I have not sat in for the GRE. From an admission standpoint, do you feel it's recommended that we take the course and submit our scores, or would you?
That's a great question. Yeah, so we do not require the GRE, and so generally speaking, I typically don't recommend it if you haven't already done it. It's not always, they're quite challenging, and they're not always the most representative of your educational abilities. Now, there are some exceptions. I would say if you have concerns about kind of the academic side of your application and you you don't feel like perhaps your transcripts are a good representation of your academic ability, then certainly it might be something worth considering to sort of bolster that portion of your application. So I would think of it, as you consider yourself as a whole applicant, which is what our goal is. We want to look at you holistically. We do a holistic review process, so we won't be fixating on one specific portion of your application. But again, if you, for instance, your undergraduate was a long time ago, you don't feel like it's an accurate representation of your academic ability today, certainly taking the GRE can be another way to show us your preparedness for a rigorous program.
And to add to that too, there's some degrees, for example, we work with a lot of students that have earned their degree in dentistry internationally, and maybe there's not a lot of quantitative information around that, but perhaps you do have strong quant skills and you want to showcase that, then a GRE could be sufficient in showing that. So just make sure that if you do decide to take it, a competitive score would be in the 50th percentile or higher. But as Elise mentioned, there's many ways to demonstrate your academic preparedness, your quantitative skill sets. So think about your employment, think about the projects that you work with. Maybe there's data sets that you typically use in a project and systems. So there's many ways to assess this and figure out what's best for you. And then I see Nicole. Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm so sorry. Just really quickly, I wanted to say that I know Sandy has to hop off right at 10. Stephanie and I can certainly stick around for a few more minutes. But thank you so much, Sandy, for joining us. We really appreciate your time.
Yeah, I'm happy. If there was a burning question for me, if anyone had anything burning for me, I'm happy to take one more question before I have to run.
I had what the question was for Sandy. I don't know if it's a burning one or not.
Okay.
And I also sent an email to request time. I think mine is a little bit of an offbeat question. I'm an EW MBA student at Haas, and I'm trying to pivot into health technology. Come with an undergrad in the engineering side, so quant is not an issue. I've built a lot of data systems, and I have a ton of experience also. But I'm trying to pivot into health, and some of the things that you mentioned, data management and decision making, those things are of strong interest to me. So two-part question. One is, are there synergies between part-time MBA and the MPH program, whether it is this or something else? I know full-time people get to do that part, but I'm wondering if there's anything with the part-time one, number one. And number two, even if it is not, what is the best way to maybe, get some learning on the health data side of the house?
Yeah, I think that's really an important question. And I'm happy to follow up with you separately about some of the details. I will say that, certainly we have a lot of overlap with data science, but we are looking through, we're using those tools with the health lens. And is what I think distinguishes an MPH from a data science degree, which is probably what you've already sorted out. So I'm happy to have a detailed conversation with you. We have a lot of students in our joint MPH program in health policy and management and MBA. So we often see that. I will just want to underscore something Stephanie said before I sign off, which is that we're obviously the School of Public Health, but you are a fully loaded Berkeley student. You can take advantage of all of the resources at this incredible university that has been a part of my life for more than 20 years. And it's one of obviously the most preeminent campuses in the UC system and also nationally as well. And so you, like Suresh, you're saying, you're not just limited to the School of Public Health. If you need to have resources in economics or in the business school, you can bring that into your work and take those, those classes within your MPH program. So I'm happy to follow up with you separately. I see your email. That's great.
Awesome.
And thank you for having me, Stephanie and Elise.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
My pleasure.
All right. Well, I also want to thank everyone on this call for joining us. We so appreciate you taking the time to learn more about our program, and it is our sincere hope that you stay in touch with us, that you consider applying. We know that you all are making huge impact in your lives, as in your communities, in the public health space already. And so it's truly an honor that you're considering us. So with that, I do apologize. We want to be respectful of everyone's time. If there were any questions that we did not get to, don't hesitate to email us. I put our email in the chat. It's online.mph@berkeley.edu. So don't hesitate to reach out if there was any question left unanswered after this info session. And as Stephanie mentioned, we will also be having a writing workshop tomorrow evening. So that's also a place where you can connect with us soon. Have a wonderful day, and thanks again for your time and for joining us.